primarily in the food value chains across the agribusiness verticals. So agribusiness actually it includes various verticals, like one is the food crops, the second one is the horticulture, then the third one is the animal husbandry. Like that, then fruits and vegetables, they are the primary verticals. Even the fisheries, actually it is one of the agribusiness verticals, primarily for the, all these agribusiness verticals are aligned across the supply chains. So what are the supply chains? Actually, we are working for rural livelihoods to improve enhance the income levels of the women groups, as it was, the movie was briefing. So women groups, they form the core of our organization's strength. All the entire supply chain across the agribusiness verticals are managed by the women entrepreneurs. So this is one of the beauty and then a specialty of Future Greens. We are recognized across the country for our work under the United Nations Development Program scheme, wherein I piloted for about 3 years, and the same system is continuing now also. So we wanted to see that the supply chains across these different agribusiness verticals are streamlined. Women in the rural area, they manage the supply chains till the processing and then supply to the end consumers or the retailers, and that is where the income percolation, the price realization for the producers gets maximized, because the traditional supply chains, they are nowadays flooded by so many private vendors. Private vendors, they are actually looking for their maximization of the profits, and ultimately producer is suffering. So, and that is, the price is the major mechanism which we understood. It is affecting the rural producers, especially the farmers, and that's the reason why there are so many suicides happening in the farming sector, especially across the states, not only in Karnataka, but any of the states. So, while working with the farmers, initially, we understood these are the major critical points, and that is where we started organizing the women groups, and then started to carve out a different niche for our interventions. Why we chose women groups? Because they are the pillars of the families, and men groups related to the women groups, we have experienced both the things. Women groups, actually they conduct these activities or the businesses or the finances more meticulously than the men groups in the rural areas. So men groups, they are focusing only on the broader sides of the agriculture, like plowing and then cropping, harvesting, and then women groups, they take care of the microfinances, the requirement of the finances through different activities, and they form the pillars of the families. That is where actually we wanted to work. Based on my experience working with the Milk Federation, we had about 380 cooperative societies at the rural areas, and out of that we tried out with about 50 women cooperatives, and in comparison, when we compared after 2 years, the performance of women-led cooperative societies in the milk performed far excellence than the males. So males, there are so many dynamics there in the production side. So in institutional arrangements, when you start a cooperative society, there will be a lot of issues like political interferences, then hegemony, then that political caste hierarchies, all those come with the permanently with the males, not with the female groups. So that is where actually we had a prior experience of working with the women groups. Same thing we replicated into our model of working with other agribusiness vertical other than milk. So milk, I had enough experience for about 22 years. Then we thought, let me go out of the milk and then try to reach out to the farmers for their other commodities. So farmers in the rural area, they are the single window agencies. He produces crops, food crops, he produces commercial crops, like oil seeds, he produces chicken, country chicken, he produces milk. So for every needs of the human beings, food needs, cropping needs, farmers, they act as a single window agency. But for our convenience, we have bifurcated the farmers, even organization of the FPOs, farmer producer companies, or the cooperative societies along the crops. But that is a wrong thing which we realized later on. So when we are organizing a collective, so these dynamics to understand for us to understand, and then organize the community for the production of the integrated crops. So then we shifted our mode from milk to crops to chicken to lamb fattening or the sheep and goat rearing, isolated view. Then we started approaching in a unified, holistic view. So we started organizing the cooperatives that can cater to the requirement of all the commodities that the farmer is growing. So that is the first phase. We tried to streamline our supply chain. So from isolated crop production, we jumped into integrated approach, and that is where actually our success story, entire success story of Future Green lies in. Yes. So primarily, we are intending to improve the livelihoods of the rural people through agribusiness value chain. This was the aim of the Future Greens, and we work for some other projects like medical related, transfer of tuberculosis between animals to humans. Small projects also we do undertake. So we are now 14 years of social entrepreneurship. These kind of enterprises are called as social enterprises because it is a win-win basis. Pure enterprises, businesses are something different. They look for their own maximization of their own profits, those businesses. Whereas we being in the social segment, we look for benefit to the farmers, benefit to the entire supply chain, plus benefit to the organization. So it is a win-win for, and so that kind of a organization working in the social field, we connote them as a social entrepreneurship. And we are trying to connect the dots in the entire value chains. Yes, next. Next. Yes. The primary objective of whatever the interventions we are doing on the ground with the rural people, where the production of the food crops happens, production of the livestock happens, is to working towards better performing indigenous breeds. So one of the speciality yes, one of the areas where in Future Greens we work is to conserve the indigenous varieties, local varieties. The very problem we are facing today in the agricultural or the food sector is because of the, earlier it was a need to improve the productivity of the land, productivity of the crops. Then we started hybridizing the crops. Then hybridization to improve the yield did not come as it is free of cost. It wanted more number of inputs like pesticides, fertilizers to be applied on the soil. So chemical fertigation, the pesticide applications, and then the hybridized seeds, it started producing more. But to a certain extent, it went on producing more and more. That is where our food crops, our food needs of the then prevailing situation in the country, wherein hunger was rampant that time, it was more pertinent. But over a period of time, when we went on applying those fertilizers and then the chemical pesticides without looking into integration and the holistic view of the agriculture, which our forefathers used to do. Our ancient agriculture was much better. That's what we are feeling it now. Everyone is feeling much better and much sustainable and then more healthier than what it is now. So now we are trying to reverse the trend back to the Vedic agriculture or the ancient agricultural systems. One of the critical aspects is the usage of local varieties, seeds, and then the animals. Local variety breeds, because they are adjusted in this complete agroecology. If you see the crops that are grown in North India, in that conditions of the climate, are totally different from the crops what we grow in southern India. Similarly, in the livestock, each of the breed of the variety is adjusted to that agroecological conditions, agroclimatic conditions in those areas. And when we started crossbreeding them, that's a mistake even I did. When I was in Milk Federation, we went on crossbreeding with a Jersey and Holstein Friesian just to get more quantity of milk. Doesn't matter, we got more milk. And then when I came up here, it was just the starting in Bijapur, and we hardly used to get about 5,000 liters per day. But now the procurement has gone more than 2 lakh liters every day, only in Bijapur and Balapur district. So that happened because of the improvement in the breeds, crossbreeding. But the negative side of it is that the crossbred milk, you might have read the papers, milk is not supported to the heart functions. Of late, after 40 years of crossbreeding, we are understanding those things. And the local breeds which were earlier existing, the cattle breeds or the buffalo breeds, they got converted into crossbreeds, and even the dung and then the urine quality has gone down, and the efficacy of that agroclimatics, other integrated agricultural systems wherein crops and livestock both are integrated at the farmer's level, it got disturbed. So we are trying to bring back that glory of the ancient agricultural systems, and we are focusing more on the local breeds. So we are working to conserve, identify, characterize, and then conserve the local breeds. So first of its kind in buffaloes, we did characterization of the Jawari buffalo. We used to call it as a Jawari buffalo earlier. And this Jawari buffalo was later nomenclated as Badami buffalo. And that was the first buffalo breed identified as a local breed in Karnataka, and that too we did through our organization. So we characterized the breed characters, say about 500 buffaloes, and then submitted it to NBAGR. There is an institution owned by Indian Council of Agriculture, subsidiary of Indian Council of Agricultural Research in Karnal, Haryana, National Bureau of Animal Genetics and Resources. So those scientists came down to Bagalkot, they stayed with us for about 3 days, studied the characteristic of the local buffalo, and they said this has got all the characters to be called as a breed. So that kind of awareness, characterization, and now the thrust of the central government is also, one of the thrust in agriculture, livestock area is to identify the local breeds and promote them and conserve them. So this was the whole idea. I was working as a for agrobiodiversity conservation in an organization called Green Foundation based in Bangalore. So I had lots of passion and then interest to work for crops and animals which are native to the tract and which can be as good producer as that of the crossbreds, provided we have to go on selecting the elite males and then go on breeding the offsprings, and at a particular time we get very good milk yield. That was successful in Gujarat with a Gir cow. You might have heard the Gir cow, the long ear and then the brown cow, which are they are here in Bijapur also, especially Sindhi people and Marwari people, they love Gir breed. And then that Gir breed, which was earlier producing 4 liters a day on an average, they went on selecting the elite animals internally within the Gir breed and mating them properly. It is not crossing, to upgrade the breed. Now you know how much is the milk yielding capacity of Gir breed. In Gujarat tract it is 22 liters every day. So that means our indigenous local breeds which are adapted well to the climate, so they have their own productive capabilities, because this systematic breeding activities was not taking place earlier since beginning. those breeds have deteriorated and they have become the low yielders. And the priority of the agricultural people, farmers, was also different. For cows, my priority for the buffalo, for example, for buffalo, our priority was to get more milk, good quality milk for the family. So we went on selecting the good males, then went on upgrading the buffaloes. And nowadays, buffaloes in Jamkhand area can yield as high as 10 liters a day with 10% fat. Very thick milk, very good quality milk. So that focus is there to the farmers, but for cattle, that focus was missing for the cows. Because they wanted these animals for plowing purpose, agricultural purpose. They required the drop power. So they focused on focus towards the drop power. That's where actually our Kilari and other breeds which are excellent in working with the lands. So it is all the focus, matter of focus. The indigenous breeds started evolving on their own since beginning. But since our focus was more on milk yield, we selected some of the breeds like Devani and Bidar area. It is also a dual purpose breed. It makes good bullock as well as good milk yielder, provided if we breed along the requirement of the consumers. So here, ultimately it boils down to the market. Whatever the farmer produces or he needs, he has to tune everything to the market requirements. Okay, this I am talking about the production system on the ground. It is first part of the supply chain. We will go about nitrogen supply chains and other things later on. So, another factor which we are embodying through our agency is the climate resilience of the interventions what we are doing. So, if we are crossbreeding, if we are trying to improve certain breeds or improve the productivity of certain food crops, then we should, first priority is to see whether those initiatives are resilient to the climate change. Climate change is the biggest buzzword nowadays. So climate change is a threat also for the entire humanity. Climate change is irreversible, it's happening, partly reversible. So we are trying to see that whatever the actions we do in the agricultural sector on the ground, they are more climatic resilience. That circular economy model, I don't know how many of you know what the circular economy model is implemented on the ground. So circular economy model, nothing is brought from outside. Whatever it is produced within the farm, they are using it, and they are in that model. Actually, we are trying to maximize the profit in the process, maximize the profit to the farmers, and minimize the wastages also. So this is what entire whole lot of things about circular economy model. So we are keeping those things in mind while undertaking certain projects and supply chains. And farmer in an individual level, we cannot approach them. They can't work in isolation. So through dairy cooperative, that is the only successful collectivization model in the entire world. And this model was replicated by many of the countries. That is where actually Dr. Kurian got FAO and very big awards also as Milkman of India, one of the best food supply chain creator, especially in milk field. And the same model we are trying to replicate in other communities. So that institutionalization, that is either in the form of cooperative, in the form of a farmer producer companies, or simple societies under the Karnataka Societies Act, so that collectivization of the producers is the primary thing which we attempted. Because that will help them to exchange the ideas, exchange the, conduct the training program for us, then conduct the business, then decide on the cropping pattern, decide on the animal type they want to rear, and decide on the price they want to give for their individual producers. So it is a collective mechanism that creates aggregation, collectivization of the producers, and that is where the markets come into play. So if we go back to our memories of matriculation, that is SSLC PUC, this thing, science textbook, we learnt about carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, like that. No? So our atmosphere is full of nitrogen. Almost 78% of the total air has got nitrogen, which is inert gas. So we keep on breathing nitrogen also. So in this nitrogen cycle, left side blue one, nitrogen is absorbed by the bacteria, nitrogen fixation bacteria that are naturally there in the soil. So they are the actual feed makers, producers of food. It is precursor, or it is organized by those tiny organisms, that is a bacteria, fungi and other things. So they absorb the atmospheric nitrogen, convert them into nitrates and then nitrites and then nitrates. Nitrates are in turn absorbed by plants. So this is how the nitrogen gets into the food system. So they are absorbed by the plants, they convert them into proteins, and these plants are eaten by animals, absorbing protein of the plants that are there in the plant system, and in turn those animals are eaten by man. Of course, man eats everything that is produced on the earth. That is where actually nitrogen gets into our food system. So these building blocks of the proteins, which are required to build our muscles, which are required to build our internal organs, which are required like enzymes, which propagates this thing, then hormones. Most of these body mechanisms are performed by the proteins. Protein building blocks are the amino acids, which are nothing but the compounds of nitrogen. That is ammonia, and then that amino acids, they couple together, they form the proteins. So there are different innumerable number of proteins that are required by the body to function properly. So that is the basic building block of every living organism. So where from they absorb? This is the cycle. Atmosphere to bacteria. Bacteria, they convert into nitrates, and those nitrates are absorbed by plants. Even the leguminous plants, they have got the nodes in their root system. They have got rhizobium bacteria. They also absorb the atmospheric nitrogen. They fix them. They are called as the nitrogen fixing bacteria. So the whole lot of our survival is hidden in the soil. That is why we call the soil as a living organism, living thing. It is not the dead thing. So the soil is a living mechanism which absorbs nitrogen, converts them into nitrates, and plants absorb the nitrates from the soil and then convert them into amino acids and then the proteins. That is where plants also keep growing, and those plants are in turn eaten by animals, grazing. Even we chop the top feed trees and then feed it to the sheep, browsing, everything happens, plant uptake those things. And one part of this is going to the animals, one part of the herb is going to the humans as a food crop. We grow jowar, wheat, everything, and they absorb the nitrates that are produced by the microorganisms that are there in the soil. So ultimately, what is the system of production? It is the soil bacteria or the soil microorganisms which converts the nitrogen, inert nitrogen gas from the atmosphere, which is about 78% of the total average constituent, and that is converted to compounds leading to the formation of the proteins. This is what is called protein synthesis happens there. Synthesis of proteins in the animals and in the plants is facilitated by the tiny microbial organisms, bacteria. This is where the problem comes with the modern agriculture. Modern agriculture, we started using the urea, phosphates, potassium directly applying to the soil. But it enhanced the growth of the plant, was very good. It supported the plant growth, but at the same time it started killing the microorganisms, which were the fundamental producers, precursors for the entire food chain. Humanity existed because of the soil bacteria, soil microorganisms. So the entire system got threatened. That is where it became, it was thrown away as it emerged as the eco-destructive mechanism, and after 30-40 years of application of continuous application of the chemical fertilizers and even the pesticides, pest repellents, we have come to understand the side effects, and then we are trying to reverse it back to our ancient Vedic wisdom. So Vedic agriculture, we are getting back to that system, production system, slowly. So now, how do we relate the nitrogen cycle in the nature, that is existing continuously in the nature, with a protein supply chain, what we are talking now? One side, nitrogen fixation happens at the level of the microorganism, we discussed about that, and that is used by the agricultural system mechanisms, and crops are grown there, and crop growth and then the harvesting happens at the second stage, and then animal nutrition, animals graze on them, and then animals, most of the herbivorous animals, those which are vegetarian, they depend upon these crop residues and then the grasses and other things, tree leaves, so that animal nutrition happens there. Animals keep on building the body mass, building the muscle mass. They also start producing their own proteins using these plant proteins and then the ammonia and then other things, other raw materials as the ingredient. They start growing, putting up the mass, and that is where, and then human comes into picture. So humans being humans, most of our protein requirement, 59% of the global protein requirement comes from the crops, food crops like the pulses, legumes, whatever the vegetarian food we eat. And about 24%, 22 to 24% of the protein requirement comes from animal source. Animal source, it could be meat, egg and milk. So these three are the primary foods that are derived from the animal and we keep consuming. So that protein global protein requirement, even now, in spite of craze in the non-vegetarian foods and then the meat consumption in the European countries and everything, still plant protein produced by the plants, they rule the roost. Most of it, 58% of the requirement, global requirement comes from the plants only. So these plants are in turn eaten by the animal, that goes into their nutrition, and human consumes those animals also. And then that is the fourth one. Then fifth one in this nitrogen cycle or the protein cycle is the decomposition, waste and decomposition. So whatever fecal material is produced by the humans or dead bodies, we bury them under the ground, they get decomposed by the bacteria, innumerable bacteria that are microorganisms that are there in the soil. They help to decompose, convert the protein, decompose the protein back to the nitrates. Proteins are broken down under the ground. Once the body is buried, or even the plant residues are buried in the ground, microorganisms feed on them, they decompose. Earlier, nitrogen was absorbed by the, one way nitrogen is absorbed by the microorganisms, converted, construction happens, protein construction happens at the level of the microorganisms, and that is fed by plant and animals and cycled back to the waste and decomposed body matter into the soil. They decompose. First one is the construction happens there, recompose. Second function at the level of the microbes only, they decompose the body cells, proteins are destroyed, ammonification happens, then nitrates and nitrates, and that is absorbed again by the plant. So this is a beautiful cycle evolved by the nature. So this entire food cycle, if you go through, it is so amazing system. And our job in managing the supply chain comes between point number 2 and then the point number 3. Whole lot of complications, because somebody is growing the crops on the soil fertility matters for him, application of inputs matter for him, because he wants to take more crops. That is, crop has to produce more proteins, more carbohydrates, more food. He is interested in that. So our first part of the supply chain is to manage the productivity on the land, on the ground, productivity of crops as well as productivity of the animals in the second line. Of course, fish and other things are there in the marine ecosystem, those are different. Okay. So, our supply chain mechanisms starts from production of food crops on the ground by the farmers. We harvest the crops, then the collective mechanisms, what we are doing right now. Earlier actually it was done only in the milk in a better way through a system called Operation Flood, and that was successfully implemented. And once a collectivization of the farmers happens, he brings the produce to that collective mechanism. That's a society. Society procures from them, it increases his farming. The mechanism, the beauty here is that if a farmer takes his own crops or the vegetables or the fruits, whatever he grows directly to the consumer, limited access to the market will be there. Because the main system is governed by big scale buyers of the crops and then processing it and then supplying to the retailers, wholesalers and all those things. So that supply chain, traditional supply chain mechanism, he cannot easily bypass. Only few farmers can afford to bring vegetables to Bijapur and then keep selling on the roadside or directly to the consumers. Very few farmers, few days in a week he can do. But he keeps on growing vegetables continuously. He keeps on growing eggs, producing eggs continuously. Chicken are there. Then livestock is there. Especially I am talking about smaller livestock. Milk, which can be kept only for about 4 hours. That commodity is there. So those opportunities are where used to be exploited by the traders and then the middlemen. They are very much necessary for this farmer survival, that is a different thing. But unscrupulous trade animals, traders, they try to exploit the situation. That is where the birth of Amul took place. This Anand Cotton Milk Cooperative Society, actually it originated with the exploitative attitude of the traders. So traders from Bombay, they used to go to Anand in Gujarat, southern Gujarat, to procure the milk all the way to Bombay. It required a lot of milk those days. And when the surplus of milk was available during October to January, is the peak period wherein most of the animals, they give birth to young ones and milk yield will be very high in the animals there, everywhere. That is a cycle, milk production cycle is there. And only during certain season, the peak procurement, peak production happens. That is by nature. And these vendors, from all the way from Mumbai, they used to slash the prices to half. During summer, if they are paying 4 rupees a liter those days, during peak season they used to pay 1 rupee 50 paisa, or most of the time farmers were to throw the milk into the gutter. What they can do with the high milk yielding buffaloes. So whatever the family consumption, leftover milk is there, they used to throw the milk to the gutters. Even that is happening with the tomatoes in polar areas, tomatoes and onions in southern Karnataka areas. So that is this product and cyclicity of the agricultural production systems that is harming the farmers. When the peak production is there, he doesn't get price. When he doesn't have any produce to sell, the market prices go up. So this led to coming together of the farmers. The farmers, they said, let us form a cooperative, let us collectivize, form a cooperative, fix our own procurement price of our own produced milk. If they want, let them buy from the societies. Otherwise, let them go back. That is where they try to capture some control over the pricing mechanism through collectivization, through formation of the cooperative. That's where the entire cooperative system got strengthened with a milk movement in Anand. And later on it became a very big international brand, world brand called Amul. So that is the beauty of collectivization of the producers. And those producers came together by default because they were getting exploited. Exploitation is the key mechanism because they felt they are being harassed. So then one leader, actually he gave an idea Why can't you come together, collectivize, pour all your producers' production, milk, into common place. Let the people come, buy it, because you have got plenty of milk at your disposal, they will offer a better price. Once the commodities are aggregated at a common place, then many buyers will come, because they get plenty of produce at one place without having, without going to hundreds of farmers and collecting from each of the farmers the milk. He can go there, buy hundreds of thousands of liters of milk, and then take it to Mumbai. That is where the entire Operation Flood or the milk movement in India gathered the momentum, and that momentum was due to the cyclical nature of the agricultural commodities, be it milk or whatever it is. Even the sheep or the goats, wherein we are more exposed to and we are working. During summer season, so this winter season, the mothers or the ewes, we call them as a mother sheep, they start giving birth to lambs. So after 3 months of age, till 3 months, shepherds, they feel comfortable to raise them. Very, very comfortable, because they feed on the mother's milk. Zero cost feeding for the shepherds. They keep feeding on the mother's milk, and then after 1.5 months age, those lambs are fed by naturally available neem leaves and other soft leaves, and then some concentrate he can afford. Till 3 months, 2.5 to 3 months, he is comfortable rearing the lambs, young ones. Once after 3 months, the things go awry. After 3 months, he cannot maintain the lambs, because they can't be taken for grazing outside along with the mothers in a distant places. He has to maintain them in a one confined place near to the rural areas, his own village, which are taken care by the women of the family. There the dynamics suddenly got changed. So they used to sell 3-month-old lambs, just imagine 3-month-old lambs in the market for meat purpose, that is for table purpose. One side there was a pull by the consumers. Both husbands and wives are working in place like Bangalore. They wanted to cook meat in a short time, because they don't have a lot of time to stay in the kitchen. Now go on cooking the meat and other things. So there was a demand for tender and younger milk. And here there was a pressure on the shepherds to sell off their lambs, young lambs, 3-month-old lambs, to the market, because he is burdened with so many things once they cross 3 months of age. So both joined together, and there was a meat market, there was a lamb market created in the Bangalore meat market. So then where we intervened as a development agency, we thought, from the perspective of the protein supply chain only, I am telling you, 3-month-old lamb, it weighs hardly about 18 to 20 kg live weight. If you take carcass weight, once you cut it and then take out the meat, it will be almost 50%. So about 10 kg meat, the market will get it. So we thought, why can't these 3-month-old lambs be given to women entrepreneurs, women agricultural laborers, who doesn't have land-based incomes, who go for agricultural coolie work to other farmers. We started giving them 2 lambs initially, about 6 years back, and asked them to raise them for about 8 months. Here the systemic convergence of the resources happened. Those women workers, they used to go for coolie work on the others' lands. While coming back, they used to bring the weeds and other green material, and they used to feed the lambs. And then we initially started supplying them the feed materials, concentrate feeds like Pashu Ahara, we call it. We have started producing on our own. So those inputs we started giving them, and they reared them up to 8 months. Then the body weight becomes 35 to 40 kg. Just imagine one single stroke intervention in the food supply chain. This is the food supply chain only. Okay, you call them as protein supply chain or the food, everything is same. One single stroke intervention to buy the lambs from shepherds, because they can't rear up to 3 months. Buy them, and then lend money to the women groups in the rural areas. We have already lent about 78 crore rupees for this venture through different micro finance mechanisms, through ICICI, NABARD Finance and other things. We linked women groups for the finances to buy these lambs. 3-month-old lamb they started buying, raising them to 8 months. They got 4-fold income. Earlier, even if you take 3,000 rupees per lamb as the net gain of income, 4,000 rupees will be for 8 months. So nowadays they are rearing about 10 to 15 animals in front of their home. 3 months old lamb they are buying, using our microfinance, raising them to 6 to 8 months, and then selling back to our own system. There the mass of the muscle mass, protein, okay, almost about 28 to 30% protein mass developed in the animal, 8 months old animal, by the intermediary livelihood seeking women groups. So this is how we organize the supply chain. Shepherds produce the lambs. They were brought by the local women agricultural laborers. They reared, fattened them to 8 months, from 3 months to 8 months. They got their livelihood enhanced, that enhanced their livelihoods, income by 3 folds, 3 times income was, that's all documented. And after 8 months, we are pulling all those animals from a particular procurement centers, we have organized procurement centers, and then sending them to meat markets. Meat market and the entire supply chain dynamics are so difficult in livestock. It is all governed by a single community. Other community, actually major community, even though they are majority in number, but they don't have much say, hold on the entire supply chain. The person indenting from Chennai, he sends a vehicle to Amingarh or Kerur in our Bagalkot area. It comes there to buy the lambs and then the animals. He has not seen the face of the agent. This agent has not seen the seller or the agents. It is only the agent to buyer's market in the sandy days. Farmers or the shepherds or the women groups, they sell off their animals there itself. And mainstream of the animals, majority of the animals, they come to the open markets. This fellow has not seen who is the buyer. Only on the phone he has spoken. He says, "Hame 200 bakri chahiye." So this fellow aggregates, buys in the market, load the animal and send to the places like Chennai, Coimbatore, Bangalore, and so that is a traditional market system is also existing. We try to develop a separate alternative supply chain, marketing channels for these producers. So in defiance of the traditional systems. Traditionally, it was the aggregators at the rural level. They used to give advance to the farmers, buy the animals at a throwaway price. He used to hand over to the next level aggregator in a cluster level, big aggregators, and then ultimately it leads to all the animals goes to the sandies. There is almost every day there is a sandy in Bagalkot district. Sante, Varada Sante, live animal markets. And before it reaches those sandies, 4 hands the animals generally they pass through. So 4 hands into almost 150 to 200 rupees per lamb. It is almost 800 rupees per live lamb. It is getting aggregated, mopped up by these aggregators, private level traders. And then it lands into Chennai or Bangalore. So as part of my study with the Ford Foundation, I studied almost all the markets in Karnataka and went to Chennai to trace the supply chain, how they traditionally it is organized and other things. People are very happy. Even though they don't, they have got lots of commitment and they establish supply chains. When I say that I can give you 500 animals at a time, and I am helping the poor farmers, women farmers. They said, "Acha sir, your concept is good. We will buy from you. But only condition, I need 500 animals every week," which was not my capacity to supply that many number of animals through my system of raising the animal through agricultural laborers and then aggregating and then selling to the market. So they said, if you miss for 1 week, my entire business setup will go haywire. It will get disturbed. And then if the traditional supply channel, who are supplying to me now from your own markets through Sandy's, they will also refuse to supply me. Because they will simply ask, sir, you have bought from Dr. Athani, you go and procure from there only. Source your animals. So that is a natural. So he was threatened with disruption of the supply chain, traditional mechanism, which we did not want to do. Then what was the thing left over for me? Is to search for the institutional buyers. Like Licious, you might have seen the advertisement. Fresh meat, that is the only pan-India brand now, Licious, that is based in Bangalore. It is about 13,000 crore rupees company now. Now it might have crossed 20,000 crore rupees transaction, because they are expanding pan-India now. I started supplying them special quality meat, akin to organic. I said, so you have got so many products, meat cuts. Lambs are there, goats are there, chicken are there. Within the lambs, they have got 11 different cuts, thigh cuts, and then boti, all those things are there. And you are buying from the local Sandy's, which we are not sure what is the feeding mechanism they have followed. It is all chemical, agricultural residues they are feeding, and that is percolating down to your meat. And you are supplying that quality of meat to the consumer. Why can't you launch a special quality meat as a free range animal meat? Only for me. Then one Mr. Abhay Handa, he is one of the founders there. He came down to my place along with his team, saw our system of rearing the animals, helping to the communities, helping those poor ladies staying in the rural areas. He said, Dr. Saab, you start KJ, but we don't want to buy the live animals. You have to process them into carcass, cut them into carcass and send to Bangalore. Again, that was a big task for me. We do not have properly managed slaughterhouses here. People keep on cutting the animals even on the roadside. That is a condition of the meat markets in Bijapur, Bagalkot, even in Belgaum also. We ventured into starting a specialized slaughterhouse. See, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಒಬ್ಬ ಸನ್ಯಾಸಿ ತಪಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಂತೆ ಕಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಪಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಇಲಿಗಳ ಕಾಟ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಅವನಿಗೆ. ಮೌಸ್, ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೌಸ್. ಅವನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ದ, ಇಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಬೆಕ್ ಸಾಕಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಯಾರೋ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಬೆಕ್ ತಂದು ಸಾಕಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಬೆಕ್ಕು ಬರೀ ಇಲಿ ತಿಂತದಂದ್ರೆ ತಿನ್ನೋದನ್ನ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಹಾಲು ಬೇಕು. ಹಾಲು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತರೋದು? ತಗೋ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಆಕಳ ತಂದ. ಆಕಳ ತಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇವ್ನು ತಪಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನು ಸಗಣಿ ಬೆಳೆಯೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೇವು ಹಾಕೋದು, ಹಾಲು ಹಿಂಡುವುದೇ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬೇಡ ಸರ್, ಒಬ್ಬಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಣ್ಮಗಳನ್ನ ನೀವು ತೊಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಅವ್ನು ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಹೆಣ್ಮಗಳನ್ನ ತಂದು ಕಾರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೋದ, ನಾನು ಮದುವೆನ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸಂಸಾರ ಯಾರನ್ನಂತ. ಹಂಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಜರ್ನಿ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ಜರ್ನಿ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನೇನೇನೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಚಾನಲ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಆನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ತೊಗೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಸ್ಲಾಟರ್ ಹೌಸ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಕನಸು ಮನಸ್ಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ. ಗುಳೇದಕೂಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ವುಮನ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ನ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಅದರ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಲಂಬಾಡಿ ತಾಂಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾದಾ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಲಾಟರ್ ಹೌಸ್ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ಹೈಜಿನಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು 2 ಲಕ್ಷ ರೂಪಾಯಿ ನಾನು ನಬಾರ್ಡ್ದಿಂದ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೊಡಿ ಸರ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದಾಗ 1 ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. 1 ಲಕ್ಷ ನಾವು ಹಾಕಿದ್ವಿ. ಹಾಕಿಬಿಟ್ಟು 2 ಲಕ್ಷ ರೂಪಾಯಿದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಸ್ಲಾಟರ್ ಹೌಸ್, ಸ್ಲಾಟರ್ cutting the animals and separating the skin, removing the spare parts and producing it as a carcass, which they hang in the meat market, meat stalls. ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಹೆಂಗೋ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಬೇರೆಸಬೇಕು. ಮೀಟ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಚೈನನ್ನು ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಎಂಟರ್, ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಪ್ಲೇ ರೋಲ್, ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ದಿ ರೂರಲ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಡೌನ್ ದ ಲೈನ್. ಇನ್ ದ ವೇ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮೋರ್ ಮೀಟ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆಫ್ 3 months old lambs, ಐ ಆಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ 8 months ಒಂಥರ ಕಳಗೆ ಅಂತಾರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ, adolescent animal, which has got more quantity of meat. That is where I am supporting the productivity, enhancing the productivity of the animal. ಆ ಒಂದು ಹಠದಿಂದ ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರು, ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳು, ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಸರ್ ನಾನು ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಕೊಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ animal, ನಾನು ತಿನ್ನಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಲೈಂಟ್ಸ್, ನನ್ನ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಅದನ್ನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ವುಮೆನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಎಂಡ್ So our income ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿಸೋವಾಗ ಈಗ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. There was opposition from my own family also, but I didn't care. So that system of cutting the animals, sending the carcass all the way to Bangalore, using the bus as the transport mechanism, one cannot imagine. Using the ice boxes, I used to keep them in the, below the luxury buses, carriage cabin, under the ice, semi-chilled condition. It used to reach precious company. That time they used to pay me 550 rupees per kg meat, that time. And they used to sell at 1100 rupees as a premium meat. It went on very nicely. We were so jubilant that altering the production system at the ground, now avoiding the agricultural residue to the animal, which is the main source of pesticide entering into the muscle mass of the lambs. Feeding practices change ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. We started producing our own feed also, lamb feed, supplying to the lamb feed. So separate supply chain we try to align with the meat markets. So this is what it means to work in the across the supply chain. You have to virtually build. It is not simple way. Even as a private businessman, I could have done. I could have established a slaughterhouse, procure the animals directly from the vendors, cut them and then sell them to Bangalore big scale buyers. That doesn't serve my purpose. My purpose was embedded in helping the women of the rural area. So with that concept, social entrepreneurship in the background, we started to do all these things in the animals. Now we are selling live animals. Now we have branded Nomadic Bites is our brand name as an antibiotic free and pesticide residue free meat that is being launched now. It's already launched, but because of COVID and other things, we had to stop for a short time. Now we are relaunching the product with the help of investors. So we have invited lots of investors because we have to build a slaughterhouse, supply chain mechanism, help the women on the ground, increase the capacity of the feed milk available with us. So all those things are required to support the different input systems across the supply chain. Once we do that, we are launching probably by first week of April, residue-free meat, first of its kind in India. I can probably say first of its kind in the entire country. We are launching antibiotic-free and pesticide-free meat, which was not heard of, but we are venturing those things. Ultimately, everything boils down to the market requirements. So, market is critical to the farmers here, or the end producers. Once we say, I will buy back, he will produce whatever it is possible on the earth, on his land. When there is uncertainty in the markets for his produce, then he will hardly venture into, because he knows the brunt of it. He has burnt the fingers already. When people say, no, we should grow sunflower, everybody starts growing sunflower because last time they got good price. Because of the higher production, at the same time, because of the cycling nature of the cropping, suddenly the prices will crash down to 50% of the prices what they got last time. Even most of the time, many of the times I have seen farmers could not recover their cost of seeds and fertilizers and cost of labor from what they got from the market. When I say, I commit that I am the market, we are trying to aggregate and you will be organized into groups. Your headache is to just bring your produce and supply to the society or the group, procurement group there. It is my responsibility to buy it at the market price. As a shop, initially we offer 5% better price than the APMC market. APMC is a different story. If I go on talking, then 2 days are not sufficient for me. Also, working through APMCs and other things, it's all a farce. It's a eyewash to the farmer. It is not a pricing mechanism. Good pricing mechanism doesn't happen there. So that is the reason why actually the central government, led by the present